And we'll be joined by Pat Varas of Norden Crown Metals, and they're in Sweden. And Pat, we had you on SF Live recently, so I can't wait to hear from you and what you have in store for us today.
Okay, so we are a Scandinavian explorer. We have projects in Sweden and in Norway, and we really are concentrating on polymetallic projects that have primarily base metals, lead, zinc, and also silver. One of our projects, the one in Norway, we're in a joint venture with a company, a fairly big mining company from Scandinavia called Boliden, and in that joint venture, we are exploring for copper and cobalt and a little bit of gold, and it's an iron oxide copper gold deposit. But then also we're working in Sweden in a project in the Bergslagen district, which is a storied, very significant mining district. So with that, I guess the goal of the whole presentation actually is to introduce your audience to what we think is a very exciting and really a very new discovery of a certain kind of deposit that I think it's not that common, but that is very significant in terms of usually around the world, these types of deposits have significant metal content, and they provide, an excellent target for exploration. So with that, I guess the first thing is out of the way is we do have a disclaimer, and like everybody else, we're supposed to. And of course, I'm going to be making all kinds of forward-looking statements. And if people would like to see the presentation and go through our disclaimer, then that way we're all covered. Okay, so what we like about Scandinavia or working where we are, I think we tick a lot of boxes in terms of mitigating risk when people are looking for investments. It's a very good jurisdiction. It's ranked very highly by the Fraser Institute as to a place that you can do exploration and get things done. It has a long-standing mining history, so there's a lot of significant mines in Sweden, and but that is accompanied by fantastic infrastructure. There are, of course, lots of everywhere you go to, there's access via roads. You got railways nearby, water. You have good environmental policies, and in the areas we're working, we are surrounded by world-class mines. Mines that are run by companies like Lundin and of course Boliden. We're right around them, and we do have a fantastic team. We're primarily a technical team. We have some accomplished geoscientists that work with us and for us, and of course we have some great investors. We have a strategic partnership with Boliden and also with EMX Royalty. So this map just shows you where we are. Our Bjørtfjord project in Norway, it's very far north. It's about 400 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle. And we've just finished a drill program there with Boliden. And it was a bit tough because we were trying to do some work in the winter when you're not leaving a lot of scarring on the countryside, because you can drive tracked equipment on the snow. But we did have a tough time getting that drill program going. We had some of the worst weather that I think they've seen in a number of years. But today I'm going to talk, and so that joint venture is actually for us. It's great to have as a junior mining company, because it is funded by Boliden. They are spending $6 million US in that area over the next 4 years for us to go and drill. We're going to do a lot of work this year. We have about 75 meters planned for drilling, and that'll probably continue sometime in the late summer. So in this presentation, I'm going to talk primarily about the Gumsberg project and specifically one of our prospects, the Fredriksson prospect. So just to give you a sense about where that project is located, That red polygon you see, that is our property. It's about 30 kilometers wide by 10 to 20 kilometers in width. So it's a fairly significant, very good sized property, but you can see that we are surrounded by some world-class deposits. The Garpenberg mine is about 30 kilometers east of us. It's run by Boliden, and of course there's a big one further south along the belt. That's the ZINC Gruven mine, which is run by Lundin. And we have some very significant past producers like the Falun mine. And these are mines that have been in production for literally, almost 100 years in some places. But it just talks about the Bergslagen and how rich this jurisdiction is. People have primarily looked for things like a very special type of VMS deposits. It's a silver, lead, and zinc rich area with very significant mines. So I'll zoom in a little bit more. This map that you can see there's a couple of things to see there. It's actually a geophysical survey that was flown by the Geological Survey of Sweden. And all throughout, and actually you can see all these dots, and I'm not sure you all can see them, but there's these little blue dots around. Those are all kind of past producing mines. And when I'm talking past producing, there's probably over 300 little mines, pits, and workings that have been mined as early as the 1200s. In fact, one of our prospects, the Öster Silver prospect, was mined basically between the 1200s and the 1500s. And it was a silver mine. It was the largest silver producer in Europe at that time. And so, of course, there's lots of these mines. And this is what we were attracted to, because when we walked around there at the beginning, we saw a lot of high-grade silver, a lot of high-grade zinc mineralization, and it has a bit of gold and a bit of copper around. And of course, we have basically a world-class VMS deposit to the east of us. But now I'm going to get into, there's a prospect you can see there. It's kind of got a bit of a red square. It's called the Fredriksson Gruva deposit. Gruva means mine in Swedish, but that mine was actually a very small mine. It was mined in the 70s. Basically, a group of entrepreneurs came in, and I believe were hunting in the area and found some of this mineralization outcropping. So they brought in some equipment, mined about 29,000 tons from a little open pit on surface, and then they went underground and they drilled a few holes just to follow that, not very deep. They only mined to about 90 meters depth. And but I think that their thought was that they were looking at basically vein structures, and that wasn't exactly the case. They were thinking VMS vein type deposits, but after doing some modeling of their drilling and some of the mapping that has been done, we actually drilled this thing, and we found that it was basically had the characteristics of a Broken Hill type deposit. And why that's significant is because Broken Hill type deposits, a lot of them are monsters. There's not a lot of them around the world. They are only known to happen, or primarily in Australia, some in South Africa, and of course there's some in Scandinavia and Sweden. The Zinc Ruben deposit has been thought of, it has a lot of Broken Hill type affinities, and of course it's a huge deposit, and that one is now being run by Lundin. But as you can see, there's lots of drill holes here that kind of give you the tenor of the mineralization. So you're looking at pretty good zinc and lead grades. They probably average close to 10% combined lead zinc. And you have basically grades from 50 to 70 grams per ton silver. And of course, these things are very good grades. In fact, they're better on average than what you see at the next door mine at Garpenberg. So the economics of the deposit, I think, would look very, very promising. But so what we did is we came in and tried to drill underneath that old mine, just to prove that the continuity of the mine was continuous at depth. And as you can see, we did this at the end of the last drill program. We were drilling at Östersilberg, where we have some fantastic silver grades and high grade, but they're narrow. They're true VMS deposits. So when you look at Frederickson, when we came here, we drilled our last 3 holes, and lo and behold, we hit basically this very thick mineralization. It's on average about 10 meters in thickness, and some really good grades, up to, let's say, 270 grams per ton silver equivalent type grades. You can see actually here a plan of what we've been able to map in this area. It's, of course, there's some of the shallow holes that were drilled by the guys that mine the operation, but you can see there are 4 beds, and this is some of the things that we think are very exciting, because these Broken Hill type deposits, they're basically stratiform. They are continuous with the stratigraphic sequence, and in this case, these things are hosted in these things called banded iron formations, and that I think is part of why we're excited, because I think we'll be able to trace that formation, by using geophysics, by using magnetic surveys, and so just to give you a sense of what that looks like from an underground perspective, you can see some of our drilling, and you could see the 4 beds dipping steeply. We know that there is more mineralization further at depth, because there is another company because it is an iron formation, another company that mines the Kiruna iron ore deposit to the north in northern Sweden. They also did exploration for iron in this area. And, we're talking 30, 40 years ago, and they did drill some of these iron formations at depth. Now, we don't know what the grades of those were, but we do know that their geochemistry had some of the things that we want. It did have some zinc, very anomalous zinc. It had also some manganese, which in these deposits, some of the key mineralization that you see is things like granite, which is a zinc spinel, and you also see things like spessartine garnets, which are manganese garnets, and these are very typical of these Broken Hill type deposits. You can actually see, some of the core here and what that mineralization looks like. Some of this pinkish color is actually sphalerite. It's a zinc sulfide, and you can actually see a little bit of galena in some of these as well, and which comes together with some of the lead and the silver that you see in the deposit. But very good grades and very good thicknesses. Now, what we're excited about that is that because these things are bedded, and our last drill hole was basically about 10 meters in thickness, it looks like we're going to be able to build tonnage fairly quickly. This is something to talk about the definition of Broken Hill type deposits, but it's very typical. So this is maybe one of my last slides, and it talks about the prospectivity. This is a survey map that shows this basically that we have this banded iron formation is represented by this very red trend of high magnetics. And we're excited about this because we have about 23 kilometers of these banded iron formations. And if the mineralization is associated or was deposited together with these banded iron formations, clearly there's the idea that we're going to have a lot of fun exploring all through that stratigraphy. And like I said, there are a number of other showings in the area that we know the geochemistry for. So we're going to concentrate a lot of drilling at Frederickson, and the plan is to go back in there, fly an airborne survey, maybe also airborne or drone magnetic survey that will fly at about 100 meters line intervals, because that way we're able to maybe look at the banded iron formation with more definition. But we would like to do a little bit more drilling at Östersilberg, but really the bulk of our work will be at Frederickson Gruva, where we'd like to drill at least 5,000 meters. The holes are not going to be very deep because all this mineralization is very shallow.
Fantastic. Pat, I do have to jump in here. We are out of time, and glad you pulled that last slide up, because I appreciate it. Thanks for joining us. Please stay on for a little bit longer so we can follow up on a couple of things you just said in the chat.